Good afternoon, everybody. How are you? I hope you're doing okay. A couple of things before I launch into anything. First of all, I'd like to say thank you to those of you who, while you're passing the door, put your weekly offering in an envelope through the letterbox. And in particular those who put something for an Easter offering. Obviously it's not the same as it's been before, but thank you very much for doing those things and for keeping us going and for the cards and everything that you sent me and Father Isaac in the last few weeks. It's very much appreciated, it really is. Secondly, to say a prayer for Mrs. Anne Shepherd of Newbold Verdon, who died last weekend with the virus, for Martin, her husband, for Louise, her daughter, and for those people who knew her. She was working as a counsellor in Long Eaton until recently, and 80 years of age. And I know many people benefited from not only her counsel, but also from her training. So please remember Anne in your prayers as well. I've got a friend called Peter. We first met the very first weekend I was working as a priest. He and his wife, Lynn, got married that weekend. And we've been friends ever since. In fact, I'm the godfather to their eldest daughter, who's now in her 40s. And Pete is clearly one of the funniest men I've ever met in my life. He's a marvellous man. And we used to try and run a youth group together with a wonderful man called Malcolm MacDonald, who died recently. It was a wonderful youth group we had in those days. They were very intelligent young people. There weren't people who suffered fools gladly. And we did all sorts of good things, plays and so on. And one of the things that we did was we took them away to a place in Edale in the Peak district called Champion House, which was owned by the Church of England. And it was basically a huge converted barn with beds in it, bunks in it, and showers. And you could go and hire it and have a little retreat or something, which is what we did in the days before Ash Wednesday. And we called this retreat No More Heroes. And the reason we did that was it was named after an LP that was made by a very fashionable group of the time, although rather strange, called the Stranglers, who those of you who are a bit older might remember. And the whole purpose was to try to show the young people that, we're not all heroes, we are all God's people together. And I've been thinking about that quite a bit when we've been using this word heroes recently a lot, applying it to the frontline care workers, and quite rightly so. Sometimes when we think of the word hero, we think of people that we admire, actors, sports people. I know that, for example, at the moment, 2 footballers from Liverpool Football Club have done something that's thoroughly admirable. Sadio Mane has sent money, huge sums of money from his own salary to build a hospital in his home village in Senegal. And Jordan Henderson was the first one to say we should take a cut in our salary. We're getting these huge salaries which we don't need, and we need to take a cut in it to support the health service and support people in need, which others were a bit reluctant to do, but more of them have signed up to it. So there's people that we admire. I'm sure that you can think of that. I have to say something very painful now, is that one of the people that I've admired for many, many years is a man called Jean Vanier, who died last year. He's written many, many books, but his main purpose was to take people with learning difficulties in to live with him and set up these communities called L'Arche communities. And you know well, because I put a lot of his writings on the newsletter during last summer. I've quoted him often to you. I found him a huge inspiration, and some of the words and the concepts that he's come up with are very much akin to my own thinking, and so I have huge admiration for him. And he died, so as I say, last year. And we found out recently that credible allegations had been made about a sexual assault by 6 women during a sort of quasi-confessional sequence with them. And I found that devastating. I found the whole thing devastating. I really couldn't cope with it, and all the things he'd written, all the things that he'd done, and yet he had done this. And of course, a lot of the people that we admire and look up to are flawed, as indeed are all the saints, Peter and Paul. Peter denied the Lord, Paul was persecuting Christians. St. Augustine led a very colourful life. And even the latter-day saints, like Pope John Paul, we know that he did things that were perhaps he shouldn't have done, or didn't do things that he should have done. And as I say, people that we look up to, often we find there's a sense of disappointment. And that's because they're human. And that does not detract from any hurt that has been caused to people, which should never have happened. It's a terrible thing. But hopefully it doesn't detract also from the good things that they've done. As Father Brian says, there's good and bad in all of us. It's like a balance, isn't it? And even in the saints. So sometimes people that we admire, even think about as our heroes, disappoint us. And that's what's happened to me, and I do find it hard to deal with, I have to say. But there's a difference between heroes and celebrities. We seem to be obsessed with a sort of celebrity culture of people who are famous just for the sake of being famous. A lot of it is very insincere and self-seeking. I remember we did a send-up of this in one of the plays that we've done here not that long ago, at which Oliver Morgan made his debut in what has since become a fairly significant acting career as Harry Enfield. He was playing Mr. Loads of Money, and he did it so brilliantly. I was falling about laughing. And he got the wife next to him, and he was saying, see her, she's got Coco Chanel from head to foot, and it's had every nip and tuck and lift you can think of, i.e. plastic surgery. Only you can't smile, can you, love? She was like this. A lot of people have plastic surgery who don't need plastic surgery. Dolly Parton, I love Dolly Parton, and one of the things she said was, you've no idea how much it costs to look so cheap. And it's strange that these often are people that we look up to, but they're only famous for being famous. A lot of that started with a rather not well-talented actress who were turned up at a film premiere in a rather revealing dress by Gianni Versace. And she then became a celebrity because she had a nice figure and had this dress and so on. But she didn't do anything and hasn't done anything. But that's the thing, isn't it? We're now getting posts on Facebook, those of you who have it, I don't, from celebrities telling us how they're surviving in their mansions during this lockdown and how difficult it is. And at the same time, still trying to promote themselves, trying to say, look at me, I'm doing this and I'm giving this money to charity and so on, but still promoting their products and their brand, which is, of course, themselves. And there's something not nice about it. In the Irish papers, one of the editorials said, celebrities, go away, we don't need you. We don't need you. And some years ago, you might remember that there was the beginning of what we called the Me Too campaign about people who had been assaulted in the film industry. And so they decided that they would make a gesture, and at one of the Oscars or one of these awards, they all turned up in black dresses as a sign of solidarity with those who had been affected as well. But the black dresses were made by Dolce & Gabbana, by Coco Chanel, by all the fashion designers. And so they were wearing black dresses costing thousands of pounds to make a gesture, and it failed. It would have been a lot easier if they'd all worn a very simple black shift made by people in a sweatshop in Bangladesh and given them the money that they would have paid for that dress. It would have been a much more powerful symbol, because these people are working in sweatshops for nothing, and that's a dreadful business. So the Me Too thing took off, but it's really me first. It's all about me. It's about my personality. And I've had a run-in with a few celebrities in my time, buried the most famous football manager in England, and last year I had the opportunity for the second time to meet someone who had been thought of as a great celebrity, namely Princess Caroline of Monaco. And when I met her and spoke to her at her friend's funeral, it turned out that this is a lady of some substance who hated the press, actually, and who did an awful lot of good for people quietly that no one had heard of. So there is that culture, and a lot of us aspire to be like these people. If you ask a young person, what would you like to be when you're older? Oh, I just want to be a celebrity. It's almost as if you're not happy in your own skin. I was talking to Julie Orton the other day, who's a hairdresser, and I said, Julie, I said, the people that are going to be busiest after this lockdown is over are ladies' hairdressers, because people want to get themselves looking nice. It's almost as if you're not happy with the person that you are, and you have to be someone else. You have to be fake tanned or tattooed or have bits of metal shoved through different parts of your body. And it's quite sad, really. But there's a difference between that sort of culture and the culture of heroes. A hero is someone who rescues you. That's the point. They rescue you. We think of them sometimes as knights in shining armour, but they're not. People who do things not for their own good, but for the good of others. We've all been treated to this wonderful man, Captain Tom Moore, walking up and down his garden with his medals on. And the last I heard, his walking up and down his garden has raised £27 million for the health service. It's obviously bought into what people like and want. And two things about that. The first thing is that they asked him on television, would you like a knighthood? How would you think if you were knighted? Someone decided that he ought to be knighted. And that was the worst thing for him. And when he spoke so beautifully. This man's 99, he's going to be 100 next week. Hope he lives and has a really happy birthday. But he wasn't talking about himself. He was there with the medals. I'm a soldier. I serve my country. I've now found a way at this stage in my life to keep serving my country. That's why Tom Moore is a hero. Because he's not thinking about himself. He wants, even in his infirmity, even in his old age, to keep serving his country, and has found this way to do it, which in itself is sufficient. I remember that film of 9/11, seeing the firemen going up the stairs as everybody was running down. And those firemen were going up to certain death in order to try to rescue people. Not too long ago, a wonderful man died called Harry Gregg. He was the goalkeeper of Manchester United at the time of the Munich air crash. And he saved the lives of 3 players by dragging them from the plane. They called him a hero, but he couldn't talk about it. One of the most remarkable things I've ever heard was Cliff Morgan interviewing this man about 20 years ago. And Cliff Morgan let him talk. It was like a psychiatrist's couch. And he talked about the fear, and he talked about the friends he'd lost. There was no talk of being a personality or a hero at all. The heroes today are not knights in white shining armour. They are the people in blue scrubs and plastic aprons and masks. They're our heroes. They're rescuing us. They're sitting with our loved ones as they take their last breath because we can't. They're trying to calm people's anxieties. They're trying to cure them, even though they know it may cost them themselves. It's an interesting thing, and I hope you don't think I'm being political, but when they show pictures of the health workers who've died, 95% of them are from ethnic backgrounds. In other words, they've come to this country from another country. And a significant number of them have volunteered either to go back to work or to do extra shifts in order to do this. Some of these people would be on the Home Secretary's list of not being allowed into this country because they do not have enough points, and we've got enough immigrants as it is. We let them come to die for us, but we don't want them to come and live with us. That is a huge hypocrisy. Huge. And some of them, we don't even pay them properly. Care workers, health workers, they live on a pittance. And if we come out of this scenario, it's one of those things we need to address. First of all, from a government's point of view, but also for the regulation of the care homes. People who own care homes make a fortune, but the people who work there make very little. And that inequality needs to be addressed. It's no good standing out on a street on a Thursday night clapping these people when all they really want from us is the ability to keep living here and keep doing what they do and not have to worry about poverty and not earning enough to keep their family. That's disgraceful. And the thing about a hero is they don't want to talk about it. They don't want to think of themselves as heroes. They don't want to talk about it. They do it because that's what you do. And that's the most wonderful thing about them. So often we think of getting credit for what we do, notoriety. That's the very last thing these heroes want. It is sufficient for them to look into the face of someone they have rescued, to see that person going out of hospital. That is sufficient for them. A hero is someone who rescues you. The beautiful psalm in the Old Testament, I will praise you, Lord, you have rescued me. When we think of Jesus' rising, we think of him rescuing us. He is the hero who does not wish to draw attention to himself par excellence, who rescues us from our selfishness and sinfulness and all that is in us that would want to put ourselves first and seek notoriety. Jesus has rescued us so that we can be heroes too. And there are many heroes in this country, most of whom their names we will never know. It's like the Feast of All Saints. It's people that we don't name. But there are people all around us every day who are being heroes. It is enough for them to do what they do. It should be enough for us not just to clap them and applaud them, but to support them to continue doing what they do by providing the wherewithal financially and also from a protective point of view. We started with, there are no more heroes. Well, actually, there are. And we thank God every day for them.